gender. We cannot tolerate any disrespectful language in the chats. And this space is really a safe space where we can work together and network together, and where we respect and make space for each other and listen to each other's truth, and where we hope we will have a really wonderful meeting today, because the aim of this session is to be really interactive. So all the participants, you will be asked to be giving your input in our agenda. Maybe I can have the next slide of the agenda. Then we can have a quick look at where we are today. So we're going to have about 1.5 to 2 hours together, and it's a really exciting session. We will have, we'll start with a wonderful feminist artist and storytelling singer, Zere from Kyrgyzstan. I'm so happy you can join us, Zere, although it's even already very late for you in Bishkek. And then we'll have opening remarks by Dr. Nadine Gasman, who is the president of INMUJERES Mexico. She's a little bit like the Minister for Gender and Women Affairs, if I understand well. And she's also helping to organize next week's big event, the Mexico Generation Equality Forum. So we're super honored to have Dr. Nadine Gasman with us today. And we also are very honored to have Alia Al-Jazeera, who is the UN Women Regional Director for Europe and Central Asia, with whom we have been working a lot in the past months to prepare for the Generation Equality Forums in Mexico and in Paris. So wonderful to have Alia Al-Jazeera with us today as well. And then we're going into discussions, and we have organized it around themes: celebration, anger, hope, and action. And there, all the participants will be asked to input, and we will have wonderful speakers who will be kicking off the discussion and looking at the input from the participants. We have Anna, who is here from Armenia. We have Erin, who is here from the Global Fund for Women. We have Rachel, who is here from Femnet Africa. We have Siva, who is here from Arrow Asia Pacific. We have Vicki, who is here from the trade unions in Canada. And we have Xenia, who is here from the Young Feminists. So we're super excited to have them with us today in our discussion. Let me see how we're doing on the number of people. I think we are seeing more introductions in the chat. Thank you. I see people from the Netherlands, and I see people from Tajikistan. Wow, amazing. Welcome. Then I would propose we can go straight ahead into our event. Let me, on the next slide, just say one more thing, that we're using a very interactive mode today. We'll ask you to go into your browser, to open a Mentimeter, to write your input. So be ready for that. This is about networking. This is about preparing together for next week's Generation Equality Forum in Mexico. So be ready for your input and for making best use of this mobilization space at the CSW. Wonderful. Then let's go straight away to our Zere Azilbek. Zere, you are a feminist artist from Kyrgyzstan, and you have prepared for us a song. And to make sure that the quality is good, we will first hear your song, and then we will go and speak to you, and you'll tell us about your life story and how you became a feminist singer in Central Asia. So, dear colleague Sanne, you may go ahead and share the song.
Жалғыз байымын жачымна бай қалды ұңғы сол қуа başta yolumdağı koygun taşta oyna 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 canımdadır bağlar canımda koy boya salı bağlaran gücü öylesinde boğup bu hayattan şun tip bozgoy unçuk baygoy unçuk baygoy Ottığa çıkkanda aklım aytkan Kızım kız bağlasın ağlayan 16'ga çıkkanda aklım kaytalagan Kızım kız bağlasın ağlayan 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 Balkim жақшы балдар, balkim bir нәрсе düşürüp algım kim bilet, kim bilet Bağınday bolup attamın çıgarbay bara jattım tez yürek, tez yürek Nege mağa asılgandan kayra özümün yolun Nege bolar erkin yürek amen bolso ağlarım Altığa çıkkanda aklım aytkan Kızım kız bağlasın ağlayan 16'ga çıkkanda aklım kaytalagan Kızım kız bağlasın ağlayan Abim aytkan kışkıçın жалғыз қала көрпе қызым Abim aytkan kech қалып жолда жүре көрпе қызым Abim aytkan қандай адамдар бар ойлағын Қыз баласың ойлағын Abim aytkan ешқашан жалғыз қала көрпе қызым Abim aytkan кеш қалып жолда жүре көрпе қызым Abim aytkan қандай адамдар бар ойлағын Қыз баласың ойлағын
Yoo-hoo! Wonderful. Thank you so much, Zere. What an amazing song. Wow. Amazing. Beautiful and touching. A situation many young women must feel in their lives. Tell us, Zere, tell us about your story.
Thank you so much. Again, thanks for having me here. It's a real honor to me. Yeah, my name is Zere. I am from Kyrgyzstan and I do music. I am a young feminist artist just starting out. And, you know, it's the music that I do, the activism that I do, and the feminism, the concept of feminism that I have in my mind is to me all about like self-therapy in terms of like before being a feminist. I remember constantly trying to fit in wherever it is, like thinking like I'm not skinny enough, my skin is not smooth enough, I'm not beautiful enough, and a lot of stuff like that that just makes you, you know, close and like it kind of limits your potential. You constantly think about the fact that you don't belong anywhere. So, and when I don't remember exactly when I was introduced to like the idea of feminism, but when I really got it, it was for me, it's you know, it was kind of a shifting point from thinking that there is something wrong with me to realizing that it's not me, it's the society that I was brought up in, it's certain social issues and like a lot of issues around that like tried to shape my mind a certain way, you know. And so I do these songs, to be honest, I do them for myself, first of all, because that is kind of me expressing the things that I wouldn't be able to express in any other way, and sort of just validating my own feelings and telling about it, you know. I find it very therapeutic. But when my songs they get like a bunch of comments from young girls being like, hey, I get you so much, I get what you are trying to say, I really feel the things that you were singing about, like, to me that's fascinating. That's it makes me realize that not only there is nothing wrong with me, with us as girls, but like the scale of how much this patriarchal world kind of limits our potential and like makes us these really insecure, closed women. I think like that fascinates me a lot. And like especially what saddens me is the fact that well, there's a lot of people in power who don't want to realize or act upon all of those things, like seeing the scale of how big the problem is, how complex the issue of being a woman in my country especially is. It's like it certainly feels like there is less interest in trying to solve the things that we go through. And I think especially, I think everyone can relate this, that the pandemic especially showed how these kinds of issues hit women differently. Because, well, in my country, we have at least 40% increase in domestic violence cases. That really tells a lot about like this issue already existed and it was already so bad, but during global crisis situations like this, it hits those marginalized groups really like in a different way. And what I see and what I'm positive about is how much young girls are realizing all of this, how much they are able to educate themselves, and like especially even the things happening on TikTok and like on social media. I look at those young girls who are like 14, 15 years old, and they're like, yo, we have to solve this and this and that. And yes, I am a feminist. And yes, I am proud to be a feminist. That really makes me hopeful. And it makes me realize that no matter how hard we get pushed by certain different like factors, we are getting stronger. And like it makes me feel like there is no way back. And I just wanted to share like the fact that every time I just come across some young girls being like, you know, just cheering each other or celebrating each other or supporting each other, that's when I get inspired. And like that, I feel like that's what helps me just to go on. And especially events like this, for example, building a global feminist movement, I mean, that sounds to me so necessary. And I just wanted to use the opportunity and say thank you to everybody who is here tonight. I really think that this Zoom meeting is so important.
Zere, thank you so much. I mean, your art goes to the heart. And that might have a bigger impact on decision makers and on the way men, women, boys, girls, everybody thinks about our rights and the rights of women and young feminists and what you do in Central Asia. And I know in your region, it might be not always well accepted and recognized. So we know that we also need that solidarity, and we will also share your songs widely. So for everybody who is following us on Facebook and on other recordings, please go and see Zere's songs. She has amazing songs. We have put them in the chat. Zere is a famous singer from Kyrgyzstan, Zere Azilbek. And we thank you for being here. And we really look forward to seeing you next week at the Generation Equality Forum in Mexico. So thank you for your inspiring words, that we are proud to be feminists and that the young feminists are organizing and they are using art to change their world, our world. So thank you. Thank you very much for being here. Stay with us, engage with us. And one big applause once more for you and your amazing song, which you made specifically for us today. Thank you. Then let me go to our next speakers, because we have two wonderful opening speakers with us today. Sana, do you want to share the slide quickly? We have Dr. Nadine Gasman, who's the president of INMUJERES, National Institute for Women in Mexico. Buenos días, bienvenida. And we'll start with you because you are ready to host us next week in your country for this big event. The floor is yours, Nadine.
Absolutely. Buenos días, good morning, bonjour, or wherever you are, afternoon, night. I know we're all over the globe. I would like to welcome everybody present to this timely and opportune dialogue on feminist movement building for generation equality. And it's so important because we are on the eve of the event. As co-host of the Generation Equality Forum, I have found spaces such as this one to be the most instrumental tools to strengthening both the content as well as the form of this multi-layered creative endeavor. As a multi-stakeholder process that aims to center the voices of grassroots movements, the forum has sought from its conception, since we began to think about this, to directly address the demands of grassroots movements and youth by concretely engaging them in actionable dialogue towards these goals. And Alia won't let me lie, because when we started thinking about this forum, that's the way we thought it, all of us. In an attempt to honor the legacy of the gender-based activism and grassroots advocates in the Beijing Conference of '95, the Generation Equality Forum sought out intersectoral and intergenerational leadership in these process-building spaces, with the ultimate goal of utilizing its momentum to position youth and feminist activists as key actors in the development of gender equality agenda. It was this very context that the Mexico City Feminist Strategy meeting in August 19 was created. Our goal was to kickstart the process toward this forum in a spirit of equal partnership with women's rights and social justice groups from civil society. For 3 days, feminists from around the globe gathered, exchanged, and drafted substantive materials. Throughout the upcoming months, through a civil society center process led by Regions Refocus and involving organizations throughout the globe, these substantive materials form the framework document known today as Women Radically Transforming a World of Crisis, which to this date has been endorsed by hundreds of civil society and grassroots organizations at the national, regional, and global scale. The result was an extremely detailed, comprehensive, and cross-cutting examination of critical challenges faced by feminist movements in the struggle toward gender equality. This document directly and boldly addresses the interlocking systems of patriarchy, colonialism, neoliberalism, and white supremacy at the root of gender-based oppression. And it was this very framework document that was used as the core for methodology design of the Generation Equality Forum in Mexico. In active collaboration with both national and international feminist organizations, and with specific attention to the demands and inputs of youth and indigenous leadership, we have attempted to build an interactive and intersectoral program that addresses the structural nature of oppression faced by gender marginalized people throughout the globe. So this effort, and in an attempt to honor the legacy of gender-based activism and grassroots advocates in Berlin, the Generation Equality Forum therefore has sought to position feminist movements, youth leaderships, and grassroots activists as key building blocks for content creation and output. Leading this process has not been without its challenges. As we have discussed in several different spaces throughout this CSW, this forum has truly been an experiment of co-creation. Creating a truly horizontal decision-making space does not come with a rule book and has certainly presented challenges both on an institutional as well as ideological level. As a government representative, there have been moments of real friction in addressing the critical and legitimate demands made by the extremely rich and diverse constituencies with whom we've engaged. And yet, I know it has been my absolute privilege to lead this groundbreaking and innovative attempt at the redistributing representation in order to examine power dynamics within multilateral spaces such as this. The road towards social justice may not be a straightforward one, but it certainly is one worth navigating. In this spirit, it is therefore my absolute pleasure on the eve of the Generation Equality Forum Mexico to reflect back on the creative process that led the groundbreaking framework document that formed the substantive basis for our program. And I'm really happy to be here today in this event where we're going to talk about that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nadine, Gasman. Thank you to the Mexican government for being such strong feminist leaders and champions, and for hosting us next week in your country, building on the Beijing Platform for Action. And we immensely appreciate that. And we are happy that you're really creating spaces for networking, spaces for indigenous women healing. We have looked at the program. It's very exciting. And we hope that with our event today, we can also come well prepared and with commitments. And before we continue, I would also, and I know you have to leave quite soon, but maybe you can stay a little bit more and we can still have some interaction. I would also like to welcome our other speaker, Alia Al-Jazeera, who is the director of the UN Women Regional Office for Europe and Central Asia. Alia, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Sascha, and dear partners, feminist activists, friends. It really is a pleasure to be with you today and to kind of prepare for the kickoff of the Generation Equality Forum in Mexico on Monday. It's always wonderful to hear from you, Nadine, and I do attest that you are a true feminist in heart as well as in mind, and it's in everything that you do. It defines, groundbreaking and innovative defines everything that Nadine does in whatever capacity she's in. And I'd like to use the opportunity also to thank you, Sascha, Hannah, Sanna, and all of the wonderful colleagues at WECF who have been great partners for us in this journey. Today, maybe is a chance for me to express to you all how much we appreciate all the commitment, the engagement, the activism, the outspokenness and the solidarity to lead together and make sure that we make the most out of generation equality. Today is another opportunity for us to openly discuss concerns, demands, hopes, also maybe to talk about what's working well and be very honest about maybe things that require some tweaking. I think as feminists, we're all invested into coming into this global initiative because we believe that there is an important moment here and an opportunity for making real change happen. And in many ways, maybe COVID-19 has brought this moment into sharper focus. I know there was frustration for the us with the substance, you're telling us what the priorities are. We're making sure that this feeds into the new strategic plan for UN Women in the region and corporately. And we know that what we do is very much relying and in support of in what you do. We also have heard you loud and clear on the importance of ensuring equal and fair power sharing. The Generation Equality Forum is for creation, and as Nadine has so eloquently put it, it is an innovative model for co-leadership, for bringing together government, civil society, private sector, youth representatives, all stakeholders. And it's intended to disrupt the power structures because they are not enabling the change that we want to see. We know that the future of feminist movements and generation equality depends on full and authentic integration of feminist leadership. We're learning from this intergeneration co-creation, co-leadership model, and we will need to adapt it as we move along. This is the first time we try something like this. I want to wholeheartedly congratulate all the amazing young people that have been involved in generation equality and those who have developed the Young Feminist Manifesto. Thank you for staying true to the spirit of this initiative, exactly what Nadine was talking about, and for speaking truth to the power. I'd like to acknowledge all the contributions of Generation Equality Youth Task Forces and all the civil society representatives in all the groups involved in this initiative. We're learning from you, and you're helping us to figure out what we're going to do, but also how we're going to do. We're learning to adapt to make sure that we're engaging more meaningfully with you in all aspects of work. We don't want to tokenize you in any way. We want to practice that inclusive feminism to make sure that no one is left behind or feeling left behind. And critically, we're looking really hard at how we can support the mobilization of resources, especially financial resources, to facilitate this meaningful engagement of all activists and their organizations. We won't always get it right. Keep us on our toes. And when I was thinking about today's meeting and reflecting on this concept of system change, and it brought to mind for me a workshop that I had to attend earlier this week amongst a very busy schedule on systems thinking. And I was sitting there and there was a lot of expert opinions and jargon that was being used in that workshop, which is a really interesting way of thinking. But as I was writing, I just wrote down the things that I was hearing. That's like, oh, that's a really good idea. And I won't bore you at all with the jargon, but I want to, I did go back to my notes and I want to share with you the words that I put down when I was listening to this workshop. And it was talking about, ecosystems. And I really do see that what we have here is this ecosystem. And that's precisely what generation equality is all about. We want to create an ecosystem that works for everyone. The concept of co-creation is at the center of this idea of deep learning, that we have to continuously learn. And to do that, we have to be mindful. We have to have dialogue. We have to build trust. We have to ensure our own and others' well-being. We have to work with compassion, and we have to work with courage. And this is the challenge that we have to make our feminist leadership really transformative. We need to keep trying. We need to keep learning. And as you said, Sascha, there has to be a safe space where we can talk about when it's working and when it's not working. We really consider your views as important. We want to get this right. We will be listening again to you very carefully today and taking careful note, and we look forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nadine. Thank you, Alia. Both of you, please stay with us a little longer, because now we want to open up to our participants and give everybody the opportunity to give some input in through the Mentimeter. And I'll come back to you if time allows, but if you have to leave, you have to leave. But if time allows, we would like to know about our first question, which we're going to discuss with both of you, Dr. Nadine Gasman, Alia Al-Jazeera, as well as our other speakers, Anna, Erin, Rachel, Siva, Xenia, and Vicki. We are going to go and look at themes, and we'll talk about anger and hope and action, but we'll first talk about celebration. What do we want to celebrate when we come to Mexico next week? What are we proud of? What do we see we have managed, like we heard from Zere, that the young women are all on social media and saying we will no longer accept this and we're going to change our world. What do we want to celebrate? We ask you to write 2, 3, 4 words that express what you bring to celebrate in Mexico. And I'll come first to the speakers, and I'll start with Nadine and Alia because you have to leave, and then the others. And we want to hear that from you, and we want you to react also to what we see the participants writing down in the Mentimeter. So for those of you who have not yet used Mentimeter, please open another browser page and type in there www.mentimeter.com, and then you put the number of which is in the chat, which is 2598727, and you come to the Mentimeter page and start writing what you want to celebrate next week when we all join in Mexico for the Generation Equalities Forum, First Forum. And I see already many expressions coming on the screen: diversity, solidarity, momentum, courage, healing and justice, collective voices, pleasure, connections, intersectional feminism, youth mobilization, our global solidarity, resistance, ILO 190 Convention Against Sexual Violence and Harassment. Yeah. Joy. Hope. Voting rights. Inclusiveness. Transformation. Movement building. Wow. Support. Leadership. Wonderful. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, participants, for your input. I'm now going straight back to Nadine and then to Alia and then to our other speakers. And we want to hear from you, your reflections. What are you celebrating for next week's forum in Mexico? Nadine, you go first.
Thank you. And I really apologize, but I'm going to the 700 activity of the NGO CSW, and you know, I need to take the light of the 25,000 women to bring it to Mexico. So I couldn't say no, and I'm really happy to be here and there. And what I'm celebrating is the first thing is that we are coming together, you know, that we really are gonna be involved in these meaningful conversations where we have the leadership of civil society, of the feminist movement, of grassroots organization, of the young people, and that we're bringing this energy, these ideas, these recommendations, these demands to a forum where they're going to be listened to, that we're going to be in a horizontal dialogue, that we're going to think together, and we're going to work towards action. And that's what I think we have to celebrate, that we're getting from the words mode to the action mode, and that should be strong enough with all our energy, all our light, all our knowledge and wisdom to take further this agenda and really make a difference a radical difference in women and girls' lives.
Thank you, Nadine. That radical difference in the women and girls' lives is what we want to see. That's why we're coming to join you next week. For those of us who are signed up, of course, I know you have 10,000 visitors already for next week. So I hope we can all be there. And we wish you an amazing week. We wish you lots of success, and we hope that our voices can make a difference and that we can have more countries who take leadership on women's rights, girls' rights, and gender equality. Thank you, Nadine, for being here with us, and see you next week. Great. Alia, then I go to you. Bye-bye, Nadine. Alia, then I go to you. What are you wanting to celebrate next week? And what did you see, what inspired you from our participants?
Well, I would say that let's start celebrating from now. We started the meeting saying that, it's been a long week, it's tiring, it's this, and then, a meeting like this starts and you get excited and happy again, and you realize why it's all worth it, to connect with it. And it's, for me, this connectedness, the solidarity that I feel we're feeling this movement is building, and we're somehow connected over space, connected over time. We're seeing people at different stages in different parts of their life and career, but still committed to the cause and finding ways to connect over also differences, which I think will be really important, because being a feminist does not mean one thing, it means many things. So how do we band together and make sure that we're working collectively on key issues that we agree are important? And I feel that I feel the spirit of that. So I want to celebrate that. And to just comment on something that has been brought up in the chat in terms of how do we make sure that there are feminists in the UN, it made me think immediately that I am celebrating that the Secretary General does clearly call himself a feminist, regardless of how the movement, he has improved. He went from a B- to a B, so this is an improvement. And let me say that it is really important when the Secretary General sends a signal like that to the whole system as the leader of that system, to say that they are feminists. And I've been in my lifetime seen it where it's gone through the whole phase of being something good to call yourself a feminist, not just something bad, to be called a feminist, to now again, kind of being embraced more. And I love that, and I want to celebrate that. Thank you, and I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Alia, and stay with us as long as you can. And I will now go to our next wonderful speakers and get their reactions. Rachel, would you like to start? Rachel from Femnet Africa. The floor is yours.
Great, thank you so much, Sascha. Thank you, colleagues. Really, really excited to be in this platform. I want to celebrate, but sometimes I'm not too sure whether the celebration is coming out. One of the things that I'm celebrating is that the whole Gender Equality Forum has been centered on the feminist approach. That's a good thing, that you celebrate. But you hold your breath, because it's one thing to have it in the concept in writing, it's another when it comes to the reality. And so at the back of my mind, I'm asking myself, Mexico, we have a feminist approach, France, Sweden, Canada, and we are hoping that many more countries will have this feminist approach. But are we really taking stock and asking ourselves, what does it even look like? What does it even mean to be a feminist government, to be a feminist private sector, to be a feminist academy, to be a feminist in research and young women, trade union? Listening to Zere's powerful, presentation, and is talking about, the growing of the feminist movement within the young women. We cannot talk about tweaking. We cannot talk about celebrating what is working. Clearly, something is not working. So we must start thinking about how to dismantle that which is not working. So for us to really start talking about feminist governments, it's not a buzzword, you know. We have to have the commitment, we have to have the fire, we have to have the authenticity of saying, will the head of state, you know, be a feminist in private and in public? You know, we love the UN Secretary General, but the UN is beyond the Secretary General. We have so many others. So like I said, Sascha, I'm celebrating the thought of it. I'm celebrating the imagination of it, but the reality definitely is something I'm holding. I'm holding my celebration with my heart beating, dun, 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 even as we are looking forward to Mexico Forum. Yes, we are saying the feminist is future. We need to say it is now. That future is now. Thank you. Thank you, Sascha.
Feminist future is now. Yeah, thank you, Rachel. Excellent. Then I will take Anna. Anna from Armenia. The floor is yours.
Hey, all, I'm so privileged and honored to be here right now. And definitely I will join to what Rachel has just highlighted. I would like to celebrate probably the opportunity which gave us the modern technologies today to join this important platform and this important conversations, because probably 20 or 30 years ago, due to this COVID crisis, we would not be able to participate to all these meetings and important discussions. But we know that gender equality and feminist agenda, it's not like stopping with the COVID, and we still have all these issues with domestic violence, abortion rights, or gender pay gap, and many other issues. From the perspective of sub-regional consultations, which I had the privilege to moderate 3-4 months ago, I will highlight the topics which generation equality themes are. And from that perspective, I would like to say that though they do not reflect all feminist agenda, all topics which we want to be and reflected there, and we are missing, for example, peace and women's involvement in peace building and peace and security agenda, but we still have quite very strong topics, and we have quite very strong blueprints which reflect our demands from these meetings and our collective voices from Eastern Partnership countries, Western Balkans and Turkey, and Central Asia. So today I'm celebrating that nevertheless we have these topics which are from our daily life, which are really, we are conscious about, and I'm celebrating also the possibility to be here, because 30 years ago, to have such a diverse group of feminists from all around the world, that would not be possible, probably.
That is true. That's the advantage of our lockdown, that it's much easier, we hope at least, for all of those who want to join us. Yeah. So Anna, thank you. And we know, you know, women are key in peace and security. They're key also in the fight for sexual and reproductive health and rights. So we thank you for fighting for that in your region and bringing that to the Generation Equality Forums. Let me take Erin next. Next is your turn, Erin. Erin from Global Fund for Women.
Thank you, Sascha. Thank you for everyone for being here. Merci beaucoup. I'm so excited. And you know what? I just am so grateful, and I'm celebrating being alive. The song, Zere song, was just amazing. I was dancing to myself. And just being able to metaphorically and also actually dance and sing during this time of this convergence of global crisis is so important, because we have to maintain that joy within ourselves in order to do this work long term. And I'm celebrating Black liberation and the racial reckoning and intersectionality that we've seen globally. And I just think we are the right ones in the room to make this work, to make this change now, as Rachel said. We are Black, we're brown, we're Indigenous, we're young, we're old. We are people living with disabilities. We are cis, we are trans, we're gender non-conforming, and we don't live these single issue lives, and our struggles are so interconnected. And we have identities that are racialized and sexual and gender identities, and we just can't ignore one for the other. And so I am really celebrating that we are bringing our full selves to the Generation Equality Forum process, and that we're not apologizing for it. We're loud, we're proud, and we're demanding belonging, because diversity, equity, inclusion is one thing and also very important, but belonging is key, I think, and an additional thing that we all believe that we need and that we should be celebrating. And yesterday, from a CSW event that we held around reclaiming technology for feminist liberation, a South Asian human rights defender who remains anonymous for her safety said to us, we have to dream ambitiously and demand everything. And I think that just encapsulates for me what the Generation Equality Forum is. Let's dream ambitiously and demand everything.
And be loud and proud and belong. Thank you so much, Erin. And thank you for your intersectional approach. And that's what we want to bring to the Generation Equality Forum. So who is next? Siva from Arrow, Malaysia. Are you with us? Would you like to go next?
Hi, thanks so much, Sascha. And yeah, it's like kind of late at night. It's almost midnight, but I must say that this panel has really energized me again. So I think that what I'm most celebrating is the fact that, actually this is a timely opportunity to put the focus on women and girls and gender equality agenda, because as we know, COVID-19 amplified the inequality between women and men and between girls and boys, right? And new generations are coming into this conversation, and it's helping also set the priorities for the next generation. And what we have seen in that this 1 year of lockdown and kind of being stuck in places and not being able to travel and be together, is that one, the technology enables us to be together, but also we are noting everywhere that conversations around gender equality are springing up, right? Because it's become a norm at micro levels, whether it's about the family, the home, the workplace. So I think that, this flourishing of this conversation, everyday conversation around gender equality is one of the successes of the feminist movement, definitely. And it's about time, because the last global conference on women was the 4th World Conference, and that was in Beijing in 1995. Before Beijing, they used to have these world conferences every 5 years. So we've been starved for a platform or a space, to bring together the different generations, and have this global moment, for gender equality.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Siva. This is our moment and we need to grab it, and we want it all. So yeah, let me next ask Vicki. Vicki from Canada. Trade unions, are you here?
I'm here. And I have to say that, it's hard to top what we've already heard. There's been some great reflections on what to celebrate already. And I agree with a lot of it, especially the call to be loud and proud and to cultivate that sense of belonging. For me, it's always worth celebrating any opportunities for feminists to gather and to connect, to discuss and collaborate. And that opportunity for collaboration, even in a virtual environment, I think can still give us a lot of energy and fuel to continue on the struggle, our collective struggle internationally, and the struggles that we have in our own countries. So that idea of getting together, about being energized and really feeding on each other's energy, is really something I'm very excited about, and I do celebrate that opportunity. Also, the opportunity to hear and understand new voices, to sort of reflect on our own struggles in different ways through the lenses of voices of folks that we don't normally that aren't normally sort of at the center of our conversations. And that reflection on intersectionality that Erin provided was I think really powerful, and something that I'm very excited about participating in. Thanks.
And Vicki, was it you who wrote in our Mentimeter ILO 190?
No, I did not. Somebody else did. But this goes to show you. Now, listen, this instrument is something we're celebrating. right? How often do we have a new international standard that creates a new human right or expresses a new human right? And that is the human right to a world of work free from violence and harassment. That is something we're celebrating. And I'll tell you, speaking of dancing, when we negotiated that convention at the ILO, the sisters from the African trade unions had actually created a song for us, and we spent a good half hour dancing around the room of the negotiating floor singing it. And I wish we were all together so we could teach it to you.
That needs to be done. That needs to be done. I'll hold you to that, Vicki. Wonderful. Last but not least, I'm going to Xenia, Young Feminist Europe. The floor is yours.
I love it. I love that we're talking about that we are celebrating and starting with the celebration and all of the energy from what we already heard. So what else can I add? I think what I'm celebrating, what we're celebrating is really having something different. I think especially now coming from CSW, and we are reminded once again what a difficult place it has become to have progressive agendas. I feel like now after that, having a space in Mexico where to celebrate progressive spaces, multi-stakeholder spaces, that is definitely something to celebrate. But personally, becoming part of such a space as a young feminist, it's been just incredible and inspiring and empowering, and I'm celebrating to be part of this feminist movement and getting to know all of these networks and actors and amazing people who put all of their passion and energy to really have effective change. And it's just been an incredible journey. And especially with also the whole young feminist organizing, it's been the networks that are coming together, the organizing between the different regions and the different themes. And I think because today we are talking about feminist movement building, the feminist movement building, especially with different feminist groups organizing across movements, racial justice movement, ecofeminist movement, all of these, that's how the young feminist movements are organizing much more, but overall, and just having that energy, there's a lot to celebrate about that. Personally, I'm also very happy about having really some explicit language on intersectional approaches, feminist leadership approaches, transformative design in there. Now, of course, it's the time to discuss and put it into practice because language is not enough, but it's really good to have it with language in this process and have it stressed all over so much. So yeah, let's celebrate.
Thank you. But sometimes we also need to be angry because our progress comes from anger often because there is so much injustice. And that's why our next question to all the participants in our next Mentimeter. So please go back to your other browser, open again mentimeter.com and share with us the next question, which I think my colleagues will also share on the screen. Yep, let's go to the next question, which is, what enrages you about challenges for women's rights and generation equality? What enrages you? What makes you angry so that it's motivation for your activism and for the disruption, the joyful disruption we need to change the world? And I see people are starting to write already. You can use the same code as the last time. Just go to the second page. So the code is again 2598727. And if you go to that page, please start writing what are you angry about? We want to hear from you. So I see resistance to listening, inequalities, unequal power, denying of some people's rights, co-option, lip service, rollbacks of rights, indifference, resistance to change, lack of willpower, patriarchy, privilege, misogynistic governance, the use of religion, unpaid care work, lack of justice approach, women's rights as a bargaining chip in CSW negotiations, as is happening this week and last week, attacks on women human rights defenders. Thank you so much. I think we have a lot of very powerful voices of anger. Thank you, all participants. And I will go back to our speakers and I will ask you to comment on that. And please also comment on the question in the chat, which feeds very much into this same discussion from Selma Akuner, saying that it is so terrible that the Turkish government, the president has overnight signed a decision to withdraw from the Istanbul Convention, which protects against gender-based violence. So I will go back to our speakers and I'll start in the middle somewhere. Let me start with, who would like to go first? Maybe Erin, would you like to go first?
Sure, I can go first. It's hard to go first. Those were some powerful contributions in the Mentimeter and just got me thinking very deeply about some of the things that I am increasingly more and more rageful about. And I think as intersectional feminists, we can feel a kaleidoscope of emotions at every turn. We can celebrate and also be extremely rageful at the same time. And that's what I really appreciate about the way with which we are coming to the discussion today. For me, the rollbacks and co-optation of our movements is really real and deep. And feminist activists and human rights defenders are really increasingly facing the impacts of capitalism and ongoing and neo-colonialism and growing authoritarianisms, extremisms and fascisms. And we're seeing the ideologues around anti-rights and anti-gender grow around the world. And this impacts us, every day, and it impacts us online. And we're seeing increased attacks against our bodily autonomy and self-determination every day. And I know some of my other colleagues will speak to this as well. And as a leader in the Action Coalition on Technology and Innovation, I have to mention that what is making me increasingly more and more rageful is the digital rights violations that we are seeing. As feminist activists, we are continually having to live through tech-facilitated gender-based violence and online harassment. There's exploitation, particularly of girls and women and trans and gender non-conforming and intersex people who are organizing online. We're dealing with privacy breaches, media manipulation and disinformation spread, and there are just reduced avenues for human rights speech online. And there are harmful technological algorithms that reproduce systems of oppression and white supremacy and biases. And there are tech tools that are combating trafficking, but actually are very oppressive and harmful for consenting adult sex workers and migrant workers and gig workers. So all in all, we are witnessing a growing government and private sector engagement in surveillance economy and military grade surveillance technology. And that is leading to increased and enhanced criminalization of marginalized communities and the movements for gender justice that we support. So the last thing I'll say, because we can go on, but the other thing that's making me incredibly rageful is this new Oxfam report that was released that said that during the pandemic, the 10 world's richest men saw their wealth increase by $500 billion. So, I mean, the world's richest men saw their wealth increase by $500 billion because of this pandemic. And it's going to take a decade, more than a decade, for the poorest people who are often our educators and our workers, our care providers. I mean, we're the backbone of our communities. It's going to take us over a decade to recover from the economic impacts of the pandemic. So that makes me incredibly rageful.
Thank you, Erin. And we are enraged with you. And it's true that these increasing inequalities are just completely unacceptable. Siva, I take you next.
Yeah.
Your age, please.
Yeah, and actually, so many of the things that Erin talked about really resonated with me as well. And so sometimes I'm just like sitting in my office and I'm thinking, why do we still have to deal with early age marriage? This should be a problem that should have been solved years ago. Or why are we still having to handle FGMC, right? So I think that many of those issues that we fought for, like, almost 30, 40 years, we continue to have to fight for them. And even as we fight for them, I mean, as much as the support, there's of course greater support, but there's also greater opposition on a number of issues. So that really, upsets me because, at least after 25, 30 years of all of this, we should at least start listening and, how do I say, centering, policy decision making about women's bodies from women's experiences and women's perspectives, right? But yes, we still have to continue to advocate and fight for these issues. So, and at the same time, there are all of these newer issues, whether it's internet safety, greater surveillance, violence against women, human rights defenders, reproductive technologies. They've also come up and demand our attention and thinking, right? So I think that those are some of those things that really, continue to bug me. I think that if governments many years ago and different stakeholders actually listened to what the feminist movement was saying, I mean, the feminist movement has always advocated, right, an anti-colonialism type of approach. We've also talked about racism or casteism and classism, and this has been part of the debates and the dialogues within the feminist movement. And if, Sascha, I mean, climate change, right, and environmental rights. I mean, these are things that for feminists, we've always looked at it at such an intersectional approach. And I wonder, why is it that it took, 30 years, for the world to catch up with our way of thinking? I mean, like, people adopt technology, like getting onto a cell phone or getting onto a Zoom call just like that. Why did they just not get into the feminist way of thinking, 30 years back? I think we wouldn't see most of the problems that we see today, right? So I think then that's the final thing that really bugs me, is this whole thing about feminism versus feminism light, right? So much of our agenda which talks about, a feminism light, which talks about choice and empowerment and rights in a very limited sense, and which has been co-opted, by the private sector and by governments and even some civil society organizations alike, without a real commitment to transformational change and what it really actually means for those in power to give up that power in order to create a more equal world. And of course, to hold those institutions which kind of perpetuate gender power imbalances to account as part of this process of, giving up power. So, yeah, so these things still bug me.
Fully. Thank you so much, Siva. I'm going straight to Xenia.
Yes, Siva, hearing you talk, that's you took the words out of my mouth, because that's exactly the thing which is super frustrating in this process. I wasn't there 25 years ago, but of course, it's very frustrating still in this process. And while, as I said, I'm happy to see some of the language there, it's so frustrating to see that there's often such a lack of understandings even on around intersectionality. I'm happy that it's being used more often, but it's often this feeling of that we don't even talk about the same things. And having especially, I really like that you stressed the decolonial approaches that we need, the epistemologies, and how do we integrate it into our programs. When we talk about intersectionality, we need to be much more explicit about racism and racist systems that we are upholding. And but when I talk or thought about what am I rageful or what am I frustrated about, I also thought about this within the Generation Equality Forum. And in addition to what I said, and having a lot of words included, but not knowing like how are we following up. It's also from a young feminist perspective, there's a lot of tokenization still. So we came into the process being so happy that finally young people get a seat at the table or get to be participating in something or leading in something, but then in fact, we were not able to lead at all or shape the agendas at all. And yeah, it's just that we all have this vision around transformation and acceleration and all that language. But then it's just increasing diversity if you bring different people there. And increasing diversity is not changing anything. We need to give up power, we need to challenge power, we need to make power visible, and not just in society, but we need to do that within the JEF structures. We need to do that also within the feminist movement and the organizations, the development organizations. We need to challenge power within the different structures and governance structures. And it has been incredible hard for young feminists. So when we came together, so maybe having this connection between rage and celebration, I didn't mention it with the celebration before, but this Young Feminist Manifesto that we are celebrating now, a lot of it came out of this rage, being tokenized, burning out. There's a lack of financing for young people, of course, lack of financing for the feminist movement overall, but it's just exhausting sometimes. And yeah, being there and not feeling we can't really shape the agenda. But yeah, on the other hand,
and we don't want that. We don't want tokenism, and we're very happy to see that at least the Youth Task Force is more and more sitting in the spaces of power. Thanks also to you. So that's wonderful. We'll come back to you, Xenia. Let me go to our next speaker, who I would like to also give the floor still. Rachel, are you there with us?
Yes, thank you so much, Sascha. And yes, feeling that frustration with you, Xenia. You know, it's really maddening and sickening to feel like it's just doing it to tick a box, but really lacking the real commitment to walk that talk. I think for me, what also, in addition to what everyone else is sharing, I think for me, what also continues to feel frustrated and enraged is the realization that we are actually in a virtual platform. GEF, Mexico, Paris, and most of the advocacy spaces because of COVID are happening virtually. But let's pause and imagine, what does that look like? What does that mean? You know, when we have most of the conversations, you know, have been taken to Zoom, and, you know, all the challenges that we have with the connectivity. Actually, according to the International Telecommunications Union, they estimate that 3.7 billion people remain offline, totally cut off from the online world, totally cut off, you know, totally digitally unconnected, you know, with the majority of this unconnected living in the least developed countries. So, you know, when we're talking about let's all connect, let's, you know, do all that, can we pause and think that we have over 3.7 billion people who are not connected? Let's also flip the other side. For the ones who are still connected, is that space safe for us even to stay connected? You know, we're just coming from CSW, and we know what has been happening with the trolls. The cyber insecurity is a reality. And so that angers me when I think about, yes, this is an important conversation. It's a conversation that we must have. I love the way Siva reminded us about the Beijing moment, you know, and all the other moments that we've had where there were fires that were lit. But who are we lighting those fires with in this virtual platform? Is it just a few who can be able to afford, who can be able to connect? Because let's also look at it in terms of connectivity and reliable connectivity. I've been holding my breath, hoping that the internet will behave, you know, and not, I don't have to keep saying, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? That enrages me, because it takes a commitment to invest in digital accessibility, one that's available, one that's accessible, and also affordable. that really continues to enrich me. Thank you, Sasha, and back to you.
Thank you, Rachel. Yes, we fully understand. Last but not least, Anna. Anna, the floor is yours. Oh, sorry, Vicki, the floor is yours, and then Anna.
Okay, thanks. I mean, there's so much to be angry about, I have to say. You know, the lack of meaningful progress, and the need that, like the need that we have to defend the gains that were made 25 years ago is just so enraging, you know. And look, we have the negotiations happening every year in the CSW. It's like that. We have to, you know, we have to fight to just protect the ground that we've already won. I find that so enraging. It was an issue. It's been an issue in multilateral spaces before the pandemic, but I mean, it's obviously something that we still have to deal with. The persistent underfunding of feminist organizations and women's rights organizations, you know, is really enraging, especially considering that there are persistent demands from all of our groups to produce, you know, to advise, to respond to requests. Talk about unpaid work. I mean, the unpaid work, the unpaid labor that women's rights and feminist organizations are churning out now, you know, in order to respond to government's requests and to make sure that the needs of women and girls and gender diverse people in this pandemic, people who are most impacted, are addressed and are heard, is just really frustrating. And speaking of unpaid labor, I mean, the unpaid care work that women and girls are burdening, it was already bad, but the pandemic has just really exacerbated it and I personally am feeling it as a mom. You know, it is really very frustrating that that essentially we've all been drafted, right, in this war against the COVID-19 virus. I find that is really a challenge, and there's actually no recognition on the part of many governments for this, and no social protection to help us to respond. I think that those are things on top of everything that everybody else has said that really gets me going. Thanks.
So were you in favor of a global fund for social protection, or what? Just one question about that. No. Okay. We can. Okay. We can't hear you, Vicki, but you'll have to tell us what we then have to take along. But let me go now to Anna. Anna, next. Your point is next.
Well, I will talk from the perspective of young women. Maybe this is sort of shifting, like the shifting power, and we finally getting our voices heard from note takers to more on the decision making. But the discussion reminded me Audrey's well-known declaration that the master's tool will never dismantle the master's house. So I still have this feeling that we are working, we are playing the game of patriarchy, and we are using the quotes, the words, and all is too much politicized and is too much like still in the scope of the game of patriarchy. So that makes me really angry, that that feeling that I have, that the feeling of that the patriarchy is still using my voice. It gives me the power, sort of power, to shift from not taker, not being the not taker during the high level discussions, but still I will return back to what Xenia has mentioned. We have the issue of shifting the power. So this is what I want to highlight. And really this reminded me a lot of quotes that Audrey is, because she's one of my favorite feminists. So this discussion reminded me her words, her work, and we are still facing the same issues.
Thank you, Anna, thank you. So let us now, we have 20 minutes left, and that's max. Let's put the next two questions together, and let's get again our panelists to give input. But this time we need to put in a new number in the Mentimeter. So please put the number, the following number, which is also in the chat, I think. Can you put a number in the chat as well? We go to the number 3603500. Please put this number in your Mentimeter, and then we want to ask you, what collective actions can we make to make the Generation Equality Forums as successful as possible? What are your hopes? Yeah, 2-3 words, so that we can see what are the actions, what are the hopes we have, which will bring us forward. And that will be our last question to all of you. And but this is very important, because this is what we also want to bring next week to the Generation Equality Forum in Mexico. So let me see if we already are getting some input on our screen. Is everybody back in Mentimeter? Are we? Can we see the screen maybe, Sanne, or?
It's coming. I just wanted to check if it was working, but I see some things coming in.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay,
you can see it now as well.
So start writing. Feminist funding. That is the collective action we need and we want. Intersectional voices. That we all have to speak with intersectional voices. We have to strengthen use of voices. We need all member states to ratify the ILO Convention 190 to end sexual violence and harassment in the workplace. We need to shift power. We need to have real dialogues and not via Zoom videos. We need to have a strong momentum. We can't let this moment go unnoticed. We need committed funding. We need to end corporate abuse. We need to have climate action. We need oversight by civil society of governments and private sector. We need to close the connectivity gap. We need strong leadership. We need co-creation. We need solidarity, arcs, and diversity. And we need feminist funding, comes bigger and bigger. And the ratification of the ILO Convention 190 gets thicker and thicker and getting more and more support. We cannot accept that there is no real dialogue. We can't accept backlashes. And we are now going to ask and we need to amplify the voices of those who are not heard. And yeah, let's take it back to our round of panelists and speakers. Thank you so much, all the participants, for your input. And I would like to start again just somewhere in the middle. I haven't warned anyone in advance, but let me just ask, who would like to start? Siva, would you like to start?
Thanks, Sascha. Yeah. Well, definitely, I'm really, hoping to see, some forward movement on the issues that we've not been able to move, right? I mean, we've all come to CSW many, many, many years only to see that, governments get stuck on the same words again and again and again. And so definitely, a commitment to advance women's and equal right to bodily autonomy, right? The right to access a safe abortion service, or ensuring comprehensive sexuality education that is there on the ground. And of course, protection and promotion of rights of those marginalized as, LGBTI persons. So these are, what I hope that by taking, this Generation Equality Forum outside of the intergovernmental processes, that we can actually see some forward movement in all of these issues that we deeply care about. And of course, what I'm thinking is that perhaps, this approach of having a multi-stakeholder approach and bringing all of the different players in society together, that we can actually see there's greater, momentum on these gender equality issues at country level, right? And, there's an all of society approach that is needed.
Thank you, Siva. Yeah, absolutely. We need to get everybody to be a feminist and to support our rights, including sexual and reproductive Right. Thank you. Let me take now our next panelist. Rachel, would you like to go next?
Great, sure, thank you. Hope, Sascha. There's so much to hope, there's so much to expect. I hope that the GEF process will not be siloed in its approach, bearing in mind that we have these diverse stakeholders whose understanding and ways of being and ways of thinking is different, understandably. But I'm hoping that that will not create room for us to approach it, in a siloed, because we'll have lost the whole vision of the GEF. I hope that the GEF will truly be the multi-stakeholder and intergenerational space it has promised in its design, in its implementation, and its follow-through. And very paramount, Sascha, I expect to see the meaningful and inclusive participation of women and girls in all their diversity in the GEF leadership structures, not just as recipients, but as legit leaders with agency, with knowledge, with the skills, with the tools of what is much needed in their own context. And they must be listened to. We must trust women in the decision-making structures and in all the broader discussions. Those are my expectations, Sascha.
Yes, thank you. We must listen to the women and their decisions. Thank you, Rachel. Let me ask Anna to come in. Anna.
Yeah, I will definitely join what has already been mentioned by Rachel and Siva. I would also highlight probably that in 25 years after the Generation Equality Forums, the next generation of feminists will not still have to advocate, fight for these basic rights of women. What we will inherit, the new generation, will be more brighter future in terms of gender equality, because what we are still facing in many countries, this backlashes and getting the situation even worse what we had before COVID. This is really unbelievable. And yes, I have also read about the Turkey's commitment to withdraw the Istanbul Convention. I mean, this enough is enough. With this slogan, I would like to say in terms of my hope. And in terms of the actions, probably I would say that we all need to overcome these fears that we have inside of us in terms of smashing the patriarchy, because it's always getting out of your comfort zone for smashing the system which has already deepened into the ways of thinking of people. In my country and also in the region, in Eastern Partnership countries, many women's rights defenders, they face systematic pressure on their personal life, on their, we always receive death threats in terms of the issues what we raise. Even such a general thing that we fight for against gender-based violence or femicide in our countries, we receive numerous death threats. So my call to action is, in spite of this tension, we need to heal the justice and we need to get out of our comfort zone. So though I'm not within the process as an action coalition leader, but also my wish and my call to all CSOs who are in this process to represent us, not too afraid to go against these rules and to try to represent as many marginalized groups as possible. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we're all for the smashing of the patriarchy. Thank you, Anna. That is the action we are looking for. Thank you. Let me take Erin next. Is that okay?
Yeah, and Rachel, I love your comment, detonating the patriarchy. That's great. I've never heard that before. Well, I mean, now's the time, I think, to repair the harms, right? There's no more excuses. Now is the time. We can't continue to be in this gradualism mindset. And I just want to thank my sister, Vanessa Daniel, who gave us that lesson and gift from the Philanthropy So White discussions. We have to do things now. It's no more gradualism. And I was really encouraged to see in the chat that feminist funding came up so much. And as a feminist fund, it's so important for us because as activist-led funds and feminist funds, we are democratizing and decolonializing the fields of philanthropy and thinking differently about the redistribution of resources. And yesterday, the Black Feminist Fund just launched. I can put a link in the chat for those folks who want to see. It's going to be a global fund for Black feminists. It's absolutely incredible. And so I'm just so hopeful that our power shifting and the reframing that we have around reparations and resource distribution continues to inspire others. And that those that are most impacted are actually at the center of those decision-making around redistribution of resources. And we know that feminist movements, we have said this so many times, back to Vicki's point about saying things over and over and over again, we know that we need more and we also need better funding. And we know what that means, but we should keep saying it. We need core, unrestricted, flexible grants that provide us with autonomy and flexibility to meet our needs. And the newest report from the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, just said that funding to advance gender equality and women's rights shows that only 2% of 540 billion, so 2% of 540 billion overall gets to local grassroots women's and feminist rights organizations. Where is that other money? We need to figure out where that is and we need to get it. And so Prospera, the International Network for Women's Funds, and the Equality Fund based in Canada, they're going to do some number crunching for us and develop an overall ask, because we need to increase that percentage over the next 5 years. And that's an ask that we really should stand by. That's an action we should stand by, because we need money directly going to feminist funds. And in terms of generation equality, I think that we're also calling on at least 50% of funding pledges to fund direct autonomous women and girls and trans-led feminist organizations and movements. That is absolutely critical and a definite action that I think we can all stand behind.
We applaud that and we stand behind it. Thank you, Erin. And what a shocking information, but what a great initiative with having launched the Black Feminist Fund. Congratulations. Wonderful. That is important to take along to Mexico. Last but not least, I still have two people left over. So I think the next person on my list was Vicki. Vicki.
Hi. Yeah, so our hopes. So I'm hoping that we can see a move to make very specific, very actionable commitments, a real focus on solutions. That's what I'm really hoping for. You know, the overall vision of the Generation Equality Forum was that civil society and youth voices were supposed to be driving the agenda. It remains to be seen whether this will actually be the case, but because it would mean a radical shift in power sharing. But that is a real hope that I think many of us share. And even beyond this, I really hope that we are centering the voices and the needs of those who are most impacted by injustice and marginalization. I really hope that we can talk about system change and not just tinkering around the edges of change and working for equality. In terms of action, listen, I think we all can take action by getting involved, not just attending the forum, but by committing to action by joining one of the action coalitions as commitment makers. We need to be demanding better of our governments. That is a real action. We need to be reaching across movements to collaborate. We need to find new co-conspirators. And we need to pave the way for new voices to be heard. And on the call to funding, I mean, that is something that I agree with wholeheartedly. And I think most of the Canadian feminist organizations that are part of our network would agree with as well. You know, building capacity and strong feminist movements requires a sustained commitment from governments. And rebuilding doesn't happen overnight. Financial resources are important, but also remembering that building strong movements and organizations means valuing knowledge and expertise. It means creating opportunities for meaningful engagement and consultation. Institutional mechanisms for the advancement of women's rights are not strong without the meaningful input, coordination, and communication with civil society and women's rights organizations and equality-seeking organizations. And because we've been working on these issues for decades, we know the solutions, and that's what, you know, we should really be driving the agenda. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, Vicki in our driver's seat. That will work. Thank you so much. And I take last but not least, I think I have Xenia next. Is that correct? Xenia. Are you still there?
It makes me really hopeful to hear about all of your hopes for the process, and yeah, everything about feminist funding. Still, this hope of really working on systemic change, and I think that's what feminist work, intersectional feminist work, is about. Very concretely, my hopes, I think, as being part of the civil society advisory group, as some others as well, being in this process for such a long time, it was frustrating at times. So really sticking to these hopes, and sometimes staying naive about some of the hopes and big dreams was so important, and still keeps being so important for me, to say, yeah, to keep talking about an intersectional approach, a feminist leadership approach, a transformative design, and really very concretely to the Action Coalition blueprint, to the overall process design of the workshops of the Action Coalitions. And also for the forums. So for Mexico, everything was a little bit, like it became very fast, but I hope for the Paris Forum, for example, that we can really, well, Mexico has some really great spaces already, and that we can build on that and have during the Paris Forum maybe really a transformative and bold space. Because when I came into this space, I was wondering, what do I hope for this whole process? And I think it's a shift in the relations between the different stakeholders, and really creating this from ego to ecosystem movement to connect with other stakeholders on systemic change. And really creating different types of spaces that are not just focused, and then I'm moving to action, where that's not just focused on action somewhere else, but where we can really create a space for co-creation. And that we haven't done that yet. We haven't created this space for co-creation. That needs to have a container where we can reimagine our realities and futures. And I think it's important to talk about, what do you imagine? And it's sometimes weird in international advocacy spaces, but it's so important to make them less formal, less hierarchical, have yeah, different type of methodology in the spaces that creates trust, that creates different relations, and also encourage to take actions, not just somewhere else, but really take a look at our own organizational structures, institutional structures, and not perpetuates the same oppressive systems within them. So this is my hope, and for action and for the forums. Thank you. It was so amazing, the whole thing, to hear from everyone. Very
excited about this. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This brings us to an end of our super interesting panel. I hope it has given us lots of great ideas for the actions and the demands we want to take forward to the Generation Equality Forums. I would like to ask everybody to open their video so we can take a family, whatever group, feminist group shot before going to round off our meeting. Yeah, put up your banners and your demands and your slogans. I see Vicki with her ILO sign. Yeah, we need that. Great, wonderful. Join us, everybody. Let's make this a great picture. Yeah, you can show your inspiration, your placards, your banners, your demands. We know it's not entirely the same as meeting in person and hugging in person, but what we can do is we can put our yes action action fist in the air, and we'll send this towards all our partners in solidarity with our other feminist colleagues. This is the feminist movement. We want to take it forward. As you have heard from our speakers, you can join action coalitions of the Generation Equality Forum. You can take actions at home. All of you are already fighting your struggles. We heard from many of you what you are doing at home, and we will support each other. Also, all our colleagues who have been talking about what's happening in Turkey, for example, at the moment. We are, we're signing your petitions. We're trying to help you with your fight to get your country back into the Istanbul Convention. The same for the wonderful work on getting our countries to ratify the ILO 190 convention. All the work which is being done on bodily autonomy and sexual and reproductive health and rights is super important. We try to be in the streets and to demonstrate, but now that we are locked down, we will have to do it online. So one of the things you can do, and which you see on the screen, is use some of the amazing communication material which our wonderful graphic designer Leila from Azerbaijan has made. It's free to use, everybody can share it, and we just need to get our messages out loud and clear. We need to get the information out loud and clear from Erin on the new funds for Black feminists, for trans people, for young feminists. We need to call on our governments for tax reform. We can no longer have billions go into horrible fossil fuels and destructive activities, and we need the funds to go to the feminist movements and to social protection. This is very important in our feminist movements. It has to be an intersectional feminist movement. We have to address decolonialization, and we have a lot of important demands to bring to our governments, and we need to push them to be among the champions. Yeah, so I think with this, if there is anything I forgot, I asked my dear colleagues Sanne and Rose to let me know. If not, I would like to start a round of thank yous, because this has been a most inspiring and very interactive meeting. So I would like to start to thank all our speakers. First of all, thank you so much. You have been amazing. And we will share the video and we'll share the reports, and we hope many people will hear you, many more than who were able to join us today. I also want to thank our artist, Zere. She had to leave already, but that is the type of activist feminist art we need to go to our hearts and to motivate us. Please share also her songs with your friends. And I want to thank, of course, our co-hosts, the government of Mexico, the government of Canada. We know that Alia and Nadine already had to leave, but we thank them still very, very much. We also want to thank our amazing translators and interpreters and sign language interpreters and captioning interpreters. You have made our event inclusive and accessible, and we thank you for that. And I want to thank all my colleagues, Sanne and Rose and Freya, and everybody who has been helping so hard to make this event come through with all the challenges. And it's been a wonderful meeting, and I'm very, very proud of the feminist movements. And I want to thank you very much for joining us today. Wishing you good luck, and see you next week in Mexico, virtually at the Generation Equality Forum.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Sascha.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, Sascha. Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you, Rachel. I love listening to Rachel. I love
Thank you, Sanne.
much energy.
If people want to still stay on for another 5 or 10 minutes to just talk a little bit, we can. We still have a few, some time to discuss. So I will be here for another 10 minutes. Feel free to chat with me if you want.
Nargis, thank you very much to you and all your UN Women colleagues. Not just to Alia, of course. You have been amazing. Thank you, Nargis. Thank you so much.
Nargis, Gulistan, Marisa, fantastic people at UN Women Europe and Central Asia.
Mm-hmm.
Is everyone attending the Generation Equality Forum next week?
Maybe we should start.
Yes.
Yeah, and we have made a booth, and so those of you who are going to come to Mexico, come and visit the booth of the CSAG, Civil Society Advisory Group. There we can have virtual meetings and coffees as well. So, yeah. Thank you.
May I say a word?
Sure.
Yes, of course. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
I can't see you all.
Yeah, well, let me
okay. Okay, you see, I keep on writing from the chat. I'm sure, nice to see you all, first of all. And I am sure you've been following what's going on in Turkey very recently. The president just overnight decided to withdraw from Istanbul Convention. And since then, we are really, working sleepless. And we need your support. Really, the situation is very serious because he only